Hi there, educators. Are you ready to get your students thinking like scientists? Let me introduce you to one of Research Quest's most popular investigations, What's Killing These Trees? In this investigation, students will step through the stunning Uinta Mountains to uncover why lodgepole pines are dying at alarming rates. Through hands-on discovery, they'll analyze real-world data and develop critical thinking skills perfect for engaging young minds. Getting started's easy. After you've logged into your account and navigated to What's Killing the Trees, as I have here, you can launch the investigation and review it. But let's first take a look at it together. Here you can see an overview of how we've structured the investigation. It isn't intended to be completed in one session. This gives your students the opportunity to deeply engage with the problem space and thoroughly engage with their research. Ideally, your students will work in pairs as they start by gathering evidence before moving on to analyzing data. They'll dive into interpreting their data and finally work to communicate their findings. Each of these stages are intended to engage your students into the same processes and methods our scientists use to do their research and to grapple with the same collections and data our team used to examine this particular research question. So let's take a short spin through this investigation. You'll see those three sections again. In the gather stage, as with each, students start with a video from our scientists. In there, they learn about how scientists begin to think about whether there's a problem or not when they see change. And one way they evaluate that for forests are through site surveys. They do aerial studies to measure the amount of dead or dying trees that are in the forest. You can see here students will participate in the survey. They've got all sorts of on-screen supports to help them know what they're looking for and what they're doing. They'll do that for each of the 6 sites before they move on to begin to look at the current conditions of dead or dying trees compared with historical data. And as we can see here, the rate of dead or dying trees compared to historical data is substantially higher. After students have a chance to reflect on those questions, they'll move on and look at the types of resources trees need to survive. In completing that part of the investigation, they're ready to move on to the analysis stage, where they receive another video from our scientists before they dive into the specimens that came back in from their fieldwork. So they'll look at each sample to look for evidence of particular potential causes for all of this death and dying. And I won't read this closely. I'm going to just click some radio buttons here. Students will use these little help buttons to see what's meant by holes in bark or beetle galleries and so on. But as they collect their data, they will be generating charts that help them see what they have evidence for that might explain what's killing these trees. And so once they go through each of their samples, you'll see they get a little report out showing what they have evidence of. And once they're done with that, they'll move on to the next step and all of their data will appear in this chart. They'll have a chance to download it and continue on. They'll compare their data with a larger data set. Again, we really emphasize the importance that science is a collaborative space. Not one person does all the work. And they'll be able to see where the data is pointing to what causes. And so you can see here the larger data set does indicate there's quite a bit of evidence for pathogens, predation, and drought. There's not a lot of evidence for widespread wildfire. And they can look at this data in a few different ways. After they've completed that, they will then, let me get over here, get another instructional video from our scientists before they're asked to look at annual precipitation, seasonal precipitation, same with temperature, in order to try to make sense of what might be driving this change based on the evidence they have. And then in the interpretation stage, they'll be learning that there is another player. They have evidence for predation. And in this section, they'll be learning quite a bit about mountain pine beetles, reasoning with that information. You can see we've kind of hot-spotted definitions and imagery where useful as they work through this data. And as they do that, then they'll be supported in developing their claim, their evidence, and their reasoning that answers their question, what's killing these trees? And then finally, in the last section, they're supported in sharing their findings. So as you can see from this investigation, it doesn't just teach science, it inspires curiosity and problem solving. Students learn to ask big questions and make data-driven connections, to think critically about the environment. So why not give it a try? Launch What's Killing These Trees today and transform your classroom into a hub of discovery. Happy teaching.